Okay, so I just wanted to take a quick break from target practicing and show you a knife that I didn't really know a whole lot about. And you might not know a lot about this knife either. This is the SOG Visionary 1. There are two models, and there's like a whole family of Visionary and Vision knives that are very similar to each other. But this is the Visionary 1, and it features their arc lock, which is something I want to talk about. I had some misconceptions about it. But first I want to talk about the handle scales. Now the handle scales feel almost identical to Spyderco's cheaper G10 that they use on the Persistence models and the Tenacious models. But this is actually glass reinforced nylon, and it feels like G10 because of the texturing in it. And also, it's weighty. It doesn't feel like that hollow plasticky feeling that you might feel on a Benchmade Griptilian. And that's because of the scales. I'm not sure if you can see, but they're not hollowed out, they're not skeletonized, and they're recessed into the handle, and it makes it really feel like a solid G10 knife. And I'm blown away by how much it feels like G10. I can't believe it's plastic. I can't believe it's not butter. Anyway, so the second thing I want to talk about is this arc lock. Now, I have a Benchmade 940 with me, and I'll show you that in a second, but I was under the misconception that the arc lock was exactly the same as the Axis lock by Benchmade. But even though it retains the blade and holds it open in the same fashion, it works differently. Do you see this screw here? Well, it's a screw on this side. This screw, this stud, is where this arc lock mechanism pivots. So it's on a sort of pendulum, which explains why the lock is shaped in an arc fashion. So it swings like this and pivots off of this screw. And I had no idea that it did that. And why is that important? Why am I even talking about that? Well, it makes it feel completely different. When you move your thumb is I'm exaggerating, but your thumb is doing this. And with these Teflon washers, it feels cushy. It feels like a cushion. It feels like it's hydraulic. It doesn't feel as mechanical as the Benchmade 940. I have a couple of Benchmades, the 111, which is like a water knife. I believe it's like the 111 H2O. And they feel very much the same, even though the thumb studs on the Axis lock or shorter on the 111. But the point I'm trying to make is it feels completely different, and it also doesn't drop shut. As you see, like I'm holding it back, but that can be probably attributed mostly to the Teflon washers. If you get the Visionary 2, it comes with bronze phosphorus washers, and I've seen a couple of people close those. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this knife because it used to be extremely overpriced. But I found a pretty good deal on it for 62 bucks, and that is $100 less than SOG used to ask for this knife. Now, I just want to get this out of the way. This is not as good of a knife as the Benchmade 940, but it's also 1/3 of the price. I paid $184, $185 for my Benchmade 940, and I believe I bought it at KnifeWorks. It came with a free engraving. But yeah, this is not nearly as good of a knife or high quality of a knife as the Benchmade 940 because the blade is VG10, which is a really good steel, right? But it's made in Japan, and the Benchmade 940 has an S30V steel, which used to be considered an American super steel, and I still consider it that, but now it feels like the world has moved on to bigger and better blade steels. So I'll show you the action on it. I'll try to drop it, but you have to kind of give it a little flick to drop it. Now I'm going to bring in my 940 real quick. So here's my 940, and you can see this thing drops closed. It's on a whole different playing field with you got your S30V steel, and you got aluminum scales with the titanium purple backspacer. But I mean, you pay for what you get, right? So I just wanted to show you guys a comparison between these two knives. I found it very interesting how many misconceptions I had about the SOG Visionary. I thought it would feel hollow and plasticky, kind of, you know? But it doesn't. It feels really solid, and it feels like G10. I can't stress that enough. You have to feel one in your hand one day, you know? That's what she said. You have to get one of these SOG Visionary 1s in your hand, or the Visionary 2, and just feel how much like G10 it feels. And here's your deep carry pocket clip. You can see that. It's not a very attractive pocket clip, I'll give you that. It feels like there's a lot going on up here too. With all of this, you have this extra pivot screw. You have to have this for the arc lock, and then you have your main pivot, which is small. It's pretty small. And then you have the stud that comes across. It kind of like locks your blade, the backstop. Also, one thing I wanted to point out was this. So listen to the difference in the sound. Oh, and of course the wind picks up. Hear how quiet this knife is? It's extremely quiet. Now watch, I'll flick the 940 and you'll hear it's much more mechanical. Oops, bounced off. You hear that? There's a big difference. Anyway, so that's it for my comparison of the Visionary 1 and the 940. I didn't want to go into too much details about the 940. Everyone knows about the 940. But the Visionary 1 is worth checking out. It's a fairly small knife. You can see it barely fills up the hand, and I have medium-sized hands. So if you have large hands, you might want to go for the Visionary 2. But it's got a nice recurve in the blade. Super thin grind. It's like paper thin. I really like this knife, and for the price of around 60 bucks, totally worth it. Do not pay $160 for this knife. It is not worth that much. But if you can find a pretty good deal on it, I'd say go get one. Alright guys, thanks for watching.